Okay, the public hearing by the Downers Grove Planning and Zoning Commission will be called to order at 7 p.m. January 5th, 2026. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Before we get started with roll call, we have two brand new members. This is their first meeting, Kira Wolf and Enrique Martinez. So welcome, and I'm sure you'll figure it out pretty quickly. Okay, with that, roll call.
All right, let's do this. Frankovic.
Here.
Patel.
Here.
Saw. Absence. Lincoln.
Present.
Everhart's. Absence. Martinez.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Rickard. Chairman Rickard.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, our typical standing announcements. If you have an electronic device, if you could please put it on silence for the duration of the meeting, that would be appreciated. Also, you'll notice that the meeting materials will display on the monitors. If you prefer to follow it on an electronic device, there is a QR code at the side of the room or on the screen. You can scan if you prefer to follow along that way. And there's also a sign-in sheet that is at the side of the room, and it may get passed throughout the room if you want to sign in so that you're recorded for attendance in the minutes for being at the meeting. And with that, first item we have are the minutes from the November 17th meeting. Any corrections on the minutes?
I have one correction. Page 11, paragraph 1, need to change the word downsizing to upsizing. So the sentence should be upsizing instead of downsizing the business.
A correction noted. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other corrections? Okay, hearing none, somebody want to make a motion to approve with the correction?
Motion.
Okay, motion by Frankovic, second by
Second.
Mr. Patel. All in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, we got one abstention. Okay, we have two public hearings tonight. One of them is a zoning map amendment at 424 Hill Street, and the second one is at 1434 Butterfield Road, which is a PUD and a zoning map amendment. We are going to flip the two. We're going to take the Hill Street rezoning first, if you don't object, and then we will take the Butterfield case second. So tonight, this is a public hearing, and the purpose of the public hearing is to gather facts, testimony, information, and deliberate up here to come to a decision to make a recommendation of either approving, denying, or approving with refinements, and passing that recommendation along to the village council. And the village council will make the final decision on at a future meeting date. And they too will also hold a public hearing. So there'll be another opportunity to show up. If you think of something after tonight that you want to attend that meeting, you'll have another opportunity to speak. So with that, I'm going to quickly run through the procedures we run through it for public hearings. We'll always start off with the petitioner's presentation. The petitioner will come up, present their application, and that'll be followed by questions to the petitioner from the Plan Commission. Then we'll get into the public testimony portion of the hearing, which is where the public, you'll have the opportunity to come up to the podium, make comments, and speak to the application. And then thirdly, we will go to the staff report. A member of the Community Development Department will come up and present the staff report, followed by questions of them from the commission here. After that, we'll go to what I call petitioner rebuttal. The petitioner will have an opportunity to come back after the public input and the staff report and make any final comments or address any points that have come up during the course of the public hearing and make whatever final comments they'd like to make at that time. And then we'll move from the public testimony to commission discussion up here amongst ourselves. And then we will we'll deliberate, make final comments, and ultimately look for a motion to pass this along to the village council. So with that, because it is a public hearing, we do need to swear everybody in. We'll do that as a group at this time. So if you intend to come up and speak, if you could just raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state in the affirmative, I do. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we will go to item B under public hearings, which is request for consideration of seeking a rezoning from R2 residential detached house 2 to R4 residential detached house 4. Property is northeast of the intersection of Grand Avenue and Hill Street, commonly known as 424 Hill Street in Downers Grove. Kyle Caprell is the petitioner and owner. So with that, Mr. Caprell, if you want to come up, introduce yourself for the record, and then the floor is yours.
How's it going, guys? My name's Kyle Caprell. I am the owner and the builder of the property. Good to get started. So we have 424 Hill. We're trying to rezone the back half of the property. As you can see, this is the property here at 424 Hill. Another plot of survey. So we got lot 37 in front, lot 38 in back. So we're on 2 lots. So as you can see on this map here, front half of the property is on R34. The back half of the property is on R2. So we're trying to rezone it to be both the same. As you can see, more examples. Back half is R2. Just some more examples. Our application. That's it.
Okay. Questions for the petitioner?
Can
Mr.
you
Lincoln?
tell us why?
It's just when we bought the property, it was zoned differently. We're trying to build a house on it and we need to do a plotted consolidation. Only way to do the plot is to rezone it to both be the same zone.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
Was there ever any access individually to the second lot that you're at?
Not with my knowledge.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, we're going to go to the public and see if anybody has any comments at this time. We'll give you a chance to come back after the staff report.
Sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Okay, is there anybody in the public who would like to speak regarding the rezoning at 424 Hill Street? Okay, if you want to come up, please. Yeah, I didn't mention this part, but if you do want to speak, you'll need to come up, and if you could just state your name for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Sure. My name is Betsy Dunn, and I live at 420 Hill Street, so I am immediately adjacent to the plot that Kyle owns. And my main concern, so there's R2 and R4, and currently my lot is an R4. I have a very narrow 46-foot wide lot that is deep, along with the neighbors adjacent to me. The lot that Kyle owns is 100-foot wide, but it's not as deep. I think it's 158-foot deep. And so typically, my understanding is that an R4 lot is intended for, these more narrow lots where they have to build longer, deeper homes. And so they allow more frontage on the plot of land. Whereas in this case, it's a nice wide lot. There's plenty of space to build out and not forward. The houses on Hill Street right now all sit back about 40 feet from the front lot line. My house, actually, we just built a porch 2 years ago. And so our porch actually extends 10 feet out in front. So basically our front lot line is at 30 foot. And so while honestly, I don't really care whether it's R2 or R4, but my main concern is that I don't want the house to be put at 25 foot from the street, because that would put it way in front of every other house on our street. And basically we'd be looking at, a wall of house. So, really that's everything else that I've looked in your code, and it looks like it doesn't really change anything else. The setbacks are going to be based on 10%, which is going to be for a 100-foot wide lot is going to be 10 feet on the side setback, and it doesn't change the rear setback. So it's really only that front that I'm concerned about. So, and I guess I would argue, why not make it an R2? if half the lot is R2 and half is R4, and it actually fits better in with the requirements of an R2, which the minimum lot width for that is 85 foot versus R4 is 50 foot, why wouldn't you make it an R2? So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak regarding the rezoning at 424 Hill Street? Okay, if you want to come on down. Good evening. If you could give us your name for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Matthew Cash, and I'm at 5219 Grand, so just a couple houses north. I don't necessarily oppose it, but I guess I would ask a question for the rebuttal. Is the plan, following what Betsy had to say, are you looking to rezone it to move it forward, or will the setback remain the same? I just wonder when that plan is. And as long as it doesn't put any more water in my backyard, I don't necessarily have an opposition against it. Although I have to say I found Betsy's argument much more persuasive. I guess that would just be my question: is why is the change, and is the plan to move it forward? Because I think Betsy makes a good point. All the other houses are already at that setback, but I don't necessarily have a big dog in the fight. But I would ask that question. I didn't quite understand it from his presentation, the reason to have it rezoned.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is strictly for the rezoning, anything, and there's no relief being sought for setbacks and that type of thing.
But
when
the
an
rezoning
application
would, by its nature, wouldn't that give you the setback relief?
it would adopt the zoning setbacks and bulk regulations for that zoning district.
So if it went from an R2 to R4, it's not necessarily a relief from that, but it would. That's the only difference, as we understand it, between an R2 and R4 is a setback, correct?
Yes, well, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at every requirement, but it will take on all of the bulk regulations and setback requirements of that new district.
Okay, that makes sense.
And anything regarding stormwater and building placement, that's a whole nother process. When they submit for an actual building permit to construct a home, those things will be reviewed for compliance with setbacks and things. And it will also go through a stormwater review where they will make sure that all the stormwater requirements and those types of things are addressed and taken care of. But this is strictly for the rezoning.
Right. I just like to complain about the water any chance I have in a public forum. So.
Understood. Okay, and sir, if you want to go ahead and come on down. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Joshua Weikersheimer. I'm at 5233 Grand. So I'm at the bottom of one hill and about the bottom of the other hill. So I'm most interested about anything that might change water, of course, because no matter what remediation we do, we are at the bottom of the hill. So depending on how things are sited could have a real impact on what kind of water comes streaming down into the yard. So I'm as concerned about space between the yard and the house in the sides as I am about the back, as I am about the front. I just wanted to express that concern and also to try to make sure that we are keeping something of the feel of the neighborhood in mind when we make decisions about this sort. It's a little bit difficult to be in one of the older houses left and to watch everything mushroom into enormous size. So if we can at least make sure that spacing is observed to the degree that it can be with much larger houses, we would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. John Millade, 5210 Grand. I'm around the corner and across the street, slightly up the hill, so I'm not as concerned about water, but I understand what my neighbors are saying with that. It's my understanding there's a difference in density and accessory dwellings between the R2 and R4. Is that correct?
We'll get to that during the staff report. We'll cover any.
I guess I'm just looking for clarification, and I'd be interested in better understanding that point.
Right.
I would be in support of accessory dwellings, but not so much increased multifamily housing at that location.
Yeah, the zoning district will dictate that it's single family only.
Okay. But that is R2 or R4 is single family only.
Both.
Okay, with no accessory dwellings.
Well, accessory dwelling units, Not, well,
Either
accessory structures or accessory dwelling units?
dwelling units.
Okay, yeah, that's a whole separate thing. I'll let staff address that when they do their
I'm
staff
just trying to
report.
understand. Thank you.
I originally thought I heard accessory structures. I'm like, well, those are allowed in any residential district, but okay. Is there anybody else who would like to speak at the public hearing? Come on down. Good evening.
Hello.
I'm Jeff DeSico. I live at 416 Hill, so right next to Betsy. And, you know, as you see, had a nice picture here of the neighborhood, and basically all the houses kind of line up in the front, you know, on Grand and on Hill Street. So if and I'm not saying Kyle's going to do this, but if you change it to R4, you could move it quite in front of, so that the house would be out of line. So I'm just reiterating what Betsy said, that providing that could provide the opportunity for Kyle to move the house much more forward. So, and as far as I can tell, between R2 and R4, that would be the biggest benefit, is that he gets a 10-foot relief, so he could move the house forward. And that would kind of make it very close to the street. Because in addition to on Hill Street, if you've been on it, we only have a sidewalk. There is no grass. There's just a sidewalk. So there is no area on the street for on the side there. So he'd be right up to the sidewalk, right up to the street if he did 25 feet.
Okay, I think we'll get more into that with the staff report.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Come on, go ahead and come on down. Good evening.
Yeah, my name's Tom Marzuski. I'm at 5256 Grand Avenue, so very close to the property at issue, and we did get notice of this. And I agree with Betsy. I think the property would be best suited for it all to be converted to R2. And as it's already been stated by a couple people, primarily Betsy, it is a difference between a 25 feet, and also Jeff, and 35 feet close to the street. This property, this home that's been there for probably 80 years, has always been 40 feet away from the street. To move something up 25 feet when you have a gargantuan 100-foot lot, most of which isn't even built on now, because there's a garage on one lot and a relatively small house on the other, you still have ample opportunity as an owner and a builder to build a magnificent, wonderful home that would fit the integrity of the neighborhood, which would be a 35-foot setback from the street. Because when we're all going down Hill Street, and there's a school on that street, Whittier School, just on the other side, that's like a racetrack over there. And I think to have another massive home that close, to have a massive home where there's no other massive homes 25 feet from the street is a danger to the community. And it really ruins the integrity of the community. And I would think it's part of the reason why we have zoning committees in the first place, because we want to keep our community safe. We want to keep them looking well and have a house integrated into the community as opposed to being an eyesore. And I believe, I don't want to put Kyle on the spot here, but I believe Betsy did try to email Kyle and ask him what his intentions were on the setback. If you wouldn't mind telling us.
If you could
wanted to go
address,
35 feet, we could just go to the bar right now. You know, because that's really our only concern. Like obviously he has a lot of rights, and he's going to build a wonderful, beautiful home there, and people will be happy with it. But to be that close to the street is really the major concern of the neighborhood here, because the width doesn't matter, because it has to be 10 feet away anyway, regardless of it's an R2 or an R4.
okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak regarding this application? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the staff report.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Flora Leon. I'm the senior planner with the Village of Downers Grove. The petition before you tonight is 25 PZC 0039. The request is for a rezoning at 424 Hill Street. I wanted to start off with the location map for your review. So I wanted to highlight that the property is just northeast of the intersection of Hill Street and Grand Avenue. Here I provided a photo of the existing home along with the public hearing notice sign that was posted. In addition to that, we did mail out notices and we published the notice in the newspaper. We did receive one question that was general in nature, And then after that, we did receive 2 additional calls, just folks wanting to understand what the request was for the rezoning. In this next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit more in detail about the actual rezoning request. So I have overlaid the plat of survey on this aerial image. You'll notice that the property itself, highlighted in red here, is composed of 2 lots of record. Lot 38 is in the back and lot 37 is in the front. You'll see here on this map that the rear lot, lot 38, where the existing detached garage stands, is zoned R2. And then that front part of the property, lot 37, is currently zoned R4. It's important to note that during our research, staff did find that this kind of configuration has been present since 1965. We could not find like a formal subdivision that was recorded. However, we do believe that perhaps the rear lot, the part of 38, was deeded over from 5229 Grand over to 424 Hill Street at some point in time. And that's why we don't have a record of this happening. Since we're on this slide, I did want to address some of the questions as far as bulk regulations between the 2 zoning districts and why the petitioner is requesting to go from R2 in the rear to match the R4 in the front. So I'll go back to this previous slide. On the top right corner, you're seeing the zoning map there. And when we look at the properties adjacent to this property, we can see that across the street, just south of Hill Street, that entire block is zoned R4. And then north of Hill Street, the adjacent parcels are zoned R4. And so to rezone this entire property to R4 would make it, it would be more aligned in that we would not be creating what's called spot zoning, where we would have kind of this area, the R2, if this parcel entirely was rezoned to R2, then it would be adjacent to R4 on each side. And that creates that spot zoning situation, which is not best practice in planning principles. As far as the bulk regulations go, those would be reviewed during the building permit for the new house construction, along with any stormwater best management practices. But the key difference which folks have highlighted is that the front setback for the R4, the required setback is 25 feet, whereas with the R2, the required street setback is 35. So there is a difference there. However, that would be looked at, if this was rezoned, we would review and make sure that the new single home would meet all the bulk regulations of the R4 zoning district, including any setback requirements for garages, detached structures. And I also wanted to highlight that accessory dwelling units are not permitted in either the R2 or the R4 zoning district. There was one other question about density. So density, the only other thing that comes to my mind, folks typically want to understand how much of a building you can fit on a property. Between the R2 and the R4 zoning district, we look at building coverage. So no more than 32% of a lot can be covered by structures. So that's anything over 18 inches in height. So where we would not count a driveway or a patio, we would look at a shed, a detached garage, the building footprint itself. And when we add those things up, that cannot exceed more than 32% of the lot. I think I answered some of those questions, but if I missed any, I can address those after the presentation. Moving on, I wanted to share the comprehensive plan compliance. So in the comprehensive plan, we do have 2 sections, the land use and development section, which does indicate that we should have single family detached residential areas with only one structure per lot. So consolidating these lots and having one structure would meet that requirement. And then in the housing and neighborhood section, our comprehensive plan does indicate that we should continue to encourage residential new construction all while ensuring that the new construction aligns with the scale, setbacks, height, bulk, and orientation of the surrounding homes. On this final slide, I wanted to show you all the criteria for the zoning map amendment for your review. Staff does find that all of the standards of approval have been met. As such, staff does recommend approval of 25 PZC 0039. Should the Planning and Zoning Commission agree, a draft motion can be found on page 184 of your overall agenda packet. If you all have any questions, I would be happy to take those now.
Okay, any questions for staff at this time? Mr. Lincoln?
The 32% you mentioned, the structure coverage of the lot, is that the same for both R2 and R4?
Yes.
And I do have one other. That's
Go ahead.
if I may. Do you have the plat that shows and so what's the current setback of the home from the street? I know that came up a lot, that conceivably the house could be moved.
Approximately 39 feet.
And so the current rule is 35, but then would become 25?
Well, that's the interesting piece to it, right? That front lot is zoned R4, so the current setback is 25 feet. And if the rear lot would be rezoned, we're just saying that the two lots would be R4. So really the front setback
Doesn't
isn't
change.
changing, correct? It's just that the
Okay.
existing home is currently set back 39 feet.
And both sides of
Yeah.
Hill Street, the south and north side, are all zoned the same.
Yeah,
They all have the same front yard setback requirements currently.
And
Now,
so-
some of the homes that are there might not be built to that setback
was-
line.
yeah, what it looked
But
like
those
to
are
me.
choices people made
Yeah.
when those homes were built. But when it gets rezoned, they would have to comply. It sounds like that house would be wrecked and prepped for new construction, and where they place it, as long as it's within the setbacks of that zoning district, it would get reviewed through the building permit process at that time. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, if you're putting up a new lot, how would you choose if it's an R4 or R2? What are the characteristics of an R2 versus an R4 to decide what it is?
Like if you're creating entirely new lots, like a subdivision?
Let's say that.
Well, we're always, with any new subdivisions, we look to see what the adjacent neighborhood is zoned.
Okay.
And we have to make sure that, whatever is touching it, we're not creating something like we could not rezone this parcel to, for instance, like commercial, because there's
Sure.
no commercial that's touching it,
If
right?
you go back to the one where shows what's the zoning next to it, yeah, so the R4s to the right, they are gonna look the same. They're skinny and long. This one's gonna be different. Is it still correct to be an R4 even though it's gonna look different than the other R4s? Are you giving precedent to just the fact that everything is R4, so that's gonna be your deciding factor? Versus the fact that it just doesn't look that similar
Oh, you're saying like the adjacent ones, they're deeper lots?
Mhm.
Mhm.
and skinnier too?
I could address that. So bottom line, we haven't had any brand new subdivisions in quite some time, with the exception of one that was just approved last year in the northeast part of town. Generally, what we see is a lot of infill developments, block consolidations, which you typically don't see here unless there's a variance associated with it. So there's nothing to stop a potential property owner from combining two of the lots to the east and then building a home on that and going through the lot consolidation process. What's important here is that property would still be subject to the R4 regulations and to meet the setbacks and the bulk requirements, just like this property would be. I think the question was asked, how do you choose this? I think Laura did state that correctly, is we look at the adjacencies, what the trend of the adjacent properties are. And in this case, R4 is present on the south, the west, and east of this property. So that it was the petitioner's petition in front of you, and staff does recommend approval of that.
Any other questions for staff? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, We're going to go back to the petitioner again. If you want to, you're not obligated to, this is your choice. If you have an opportunity to come back up and address anything that's been said to this point and make any last comments before we kind of deliberate up here. So it's your call whether you want to take advantage of that or not.
Neighbors, thank you for voicing your concern about the property line. And this has been through the permitted process. I just pulled up the actual where we're setting it back. And to ours is, even if we're zoned R4, we will still follow that 35 feet setback. So we are not going to the 25, we're going to the 35. So our biggest goal is to preserve as many trees as we can. So that's why we went further back. We didn't want to go further forward. So I just want to alliterate that, especially that's everyone's concern here. And with the water mitigation, we're going to follow all codes with that and go through the proper channels and make sure that everything passes.
Okay. All right. So that's it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Discussion up here.
I mean, I guess I could start. I mean, I'm generally in support. I don't see any concerns with it. It makes logical sense to make it match the neighbors and not have a spot zone. It doesn't seem like there's a really big difference, honestly. I think most of the concerns of the neighbors were addressed. Even if he wanted to bring it forward, he can't because he's already zoned R4 and is 4 feet from the lines. I think it was mentioned 39 feet and it's going to be 35 feet. So for all intents and purposes, it's about the same as it always was. The front of the house is already in R4. It's going to just be that the back of the lot's R4 so that it's one lot of record, which is logical for it to be one lot rather than two with property, you know, structures crossing it. So.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, hold on a second. We're just deliberating here at this point. Okay.
If you zone R4, you can go up to 25 feet. Kyle said he wants to go any more than 35.
Okay, we're going to get back to deliberating up here. Anybody have any other comments? Ms.
I was
Frankovic?
going to agree with Commissioner Lincoln's, what he said as well. I think that, you know, the owner builder is doing his due diligence for the neighborhood and trying to keep the same feel and same structure. I appreciate you making the efforts to keep the existing trees, especially. I think that's very important to the neighborhood character. And I think that, you know, consolidating the lots makes perfect sense. It makes a more concise neighborhood plan, and I'm all for it.
Okay, any other comments? I just have a couple comments. I agree. This seems to be pretty straightforward. I think it's actually kind of cleaning up an anomaly that was out there. Something that at some point in time just wasn't addressed. And while I appreciate the applicant's willingness to set the house back, the setback requirements don't change for the house. Just so the residents are aware, legally, the setback is per the zoning ordinance. If any future homeowner or home builder decides to build, they would have the ability to go to the 25 feet, just so you're aware. But so the fact that the applicant stated that doesn't really affect our request here in changing of the zoning. Anybody else have any comments? If not, somebody ready to make a motion on this?
You can make a motion. Based on the petitioner's submittal, the staff report, and the testimony presented, I find that the petitioner has met the standards of approval for rezoning as required by the Village of Downers Grove zoning ordinance and is in the public interest, and therefore I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Village Council approval of 25-PZC-0039, subject to the two conditions as articulated on page 3 of the staff report.
Okay, motion approved by Mr. Patel. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lincoln. Roll call?
All right, Patel.
Aye.
Lincoln.
Aye.
Frankovic.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Chairman Rickard.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Those that have never attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, I see some of my friends here. We usually schedule this a month ahead for village council consideration, but that is subject to change. What I'd recommend is contacting our office if you want to confirm what date this is going to be heard by the village council. Packets do go out Friday before the Tuesday meeting of the next week. Council meets your first, second, and third Tuesday of every month. Traditionally, it is on the February agenda. Sometimes we move things up slightly to help us to have agenda business with our council. Contact us in the office, or check the agendas every Friday. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into the second public hearing, which is 1434 Butterfield Road. Petitioner is requesting approval for a PUD and a zoning map amendment from B3 General Services and Highway Business to a B3 PUD General Services and Highway Business Plan Unit Development, and also a special use permit to construct and operate a drive-through window at 1434 Butterfield Road. So with that, petitioner, if you want to introduce yourself for the record, and then the floor is yours.
My name is Laura Pacino. I work for Who Brew LLC, who is the franchisee of Seven Brew. So first, so like I said, I work for Who Brew LLC. We are a franchisee of Seven Brew. Our market territories that we have are Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana, Nashville, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh. We are looking at going at 1434 Butterfield Road in front of the Golf Galaxy and Best Buy. If you don't know a lot about Seven Brew, the first stand opened in Rogers, Arkansas in 2017. There are now currently 604 stands open nationwide. We are a unique concept. We are a double drive-through concept only. There is no inside dining or outside dining. We have our employees walking through the drive-through on iPads. We do not have a traditional menu board, so we are similar to Chick-fil-A or Portillo's. In addition, when you receive your drink, it is not a typical handed out the window. We actually have sliding glass doors in which somebody will physically come out to your vehicle and hand you your drink. Our emphasis is on speed of service and fun, energetic. We have music playing, and really it's just about getting the throughput through our customers. Our core demographic is 15 to 25-year-olds. So we don't have, like the Starbucks across the street, we don't have a line at 7 a.m. We may have a line, throughout the day. Like I said, 15 to 25-year-olds. It could be during lunchtime for college kids. It could be after high school, college, and then in the evening. Speaking of that, our hours of operations are 5:30 to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and we are open till 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. This is a kind of a sample of our menu. We have 7 drink bases that you can choose from. What makes us very unique is that the amount of syrups that we have. They say you can make 20,000 different drink combinations. I would say that's probably up to 40,000 now, just based on TikTok and Facebook and everybody creating something of their own. We are a beverage only concept. We do have one prepackaged muffin top. It comes from our supplier. We dump it out of a box. That's the only food item that we have. This is an aerial photo of the northeast corner that we are looking to take. And then these are the existing conditions. Here is a picture of our site plan. Again, it's a double drive-through access that you will go north on Downers Drive, and then shared parking throughout the shopping center. One item that we did work with staff on is to have our trash enclosure connected to the building so as to not interfere with additional parking. And then another item we worked with staff was also to add additional landscape islands on an impervious parking lot. Currently, the double drive-through lanes can queue 39 cars. With this additional stacking plan that we worked with staff and our landlord, who's also working with Golf Galaxy and Best Buy, we can stack 57 cars. This is a parking site plan of the shopping center. I think it's 379 parking spots currently, and it will go down to 320. And then This is Brendan May. He works with KLOA and he will discuss traffic.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Evening. As she indicated, my name is Brendan May. I'm a principal with KLOA. I'm a professional licensed engineer in the state of Illinois and have my professional traffic operations engineering certification. So for this past almost year now, we've been working with Seven Brew to identify their trip generation and queuing characteristics that are specific to this user. As indicated, is very unique with the Chicagoland market being even more unique than what they're seeing nationwide. So we did trip generation and queuing surveys with the Naperville and Lake Zurich locations. And we had trip generation surveys done with the Huntley location. Those were done last March through May of last year when they were the only 4 stands. There are now up to 7 stands open in the area. So the results of our traffic study found that the volume of traffic estimated to be generated by the Seven Brew based on these surveys would have a limited impact on the existing access system serving the shopping center. It is anticipated that with the opening of this location as well as other locations, that the trip generation surveys as conducted would decrease in time, but we utilize them as is to provide kind of a worst case scenario of if this store was operating within the same characteristics of the existing locations. Based on a review of the queuing surveys conducted at the Naperville and Lake Zurich locations, we also looked at comparing sales data and zip code data of where these sales are occurring from, the radius and sales in the Chicagoland market compared to other national average locations. How that all kind of comes together, we think that the peak queue that a new Chicagoland location could expect as more come online is 34 vehicles. And therefore we think the 39 vehicle stacking as proposed would be adequate in accommodating the peak stacking for this site. So this kind of higher end 30 number was developed in partnership with Seven Brew, where we came up with this queue and they started sizing sites more appropriately to accommodate a queue versus what you may see at other locations. And lastly, the resulting 320 parking spaces that will serve Golf Galaxy and Best Buy will be adequate in accommodating their parking demand. I'll be available for any other questions you may have regarding our surveys and whatnot after the presentation.
Okay. Questions for the petitioner? Mr. Lincoln?
Oh, I was,
Yeah, no,
are you done?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to talk about traffic. And one thing I
Sure.
did
I
forget.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's
Barry.
okay. One thing I did forget to mention in the beginning is that, like I said, we have a market of 4 areas: Chicago, Northwest Indiana, Nashville, and Pittsburgh. We currently have 26 stands open, 12 of those being in Chicago and Northwest Indiana, but more specific to hone in on, like we talked about, the traffic issues. And Naperville, Round Lake Beach, Lake Zurich, Huntley, Mokina, Lockport, 2 in Joliet, and Bolingbrook are all currently open. We have 5 more that are currently under construction, which is Algonquin, Tinley Park, Crystal Lake, Bloomingdale, and Palatine. And then we have 13 that are under permit review right now, which is Carpentersville, Lakemore, a second Bloomingdale, 2 in Waukegan, Plainfield, Montgomery, Yorkville, North Riverside, Niles, Des Plaines, Melrose Park, and Wheaton, with another 9 that are in entitlement, which is Grays Lake, Flossmoor, Warrenville, St. Charles, Mount Prospect, Schaumburg, Elgin, Carroll Stream, and Romeoville. So we are going out and saturating the market. Kind of what Brendan talked about, Naperville was the first stand that we had opened. When we worked with corporate, we were talking about half-acre sites, 15 to 20 queue spaces. We have quickly found out that that does not work in the Chicagoland market. Chicagoland market is the #1 market across every market. It also, Naperville is the #1 stand out of 604. And as of, I think, October, we had 4 or 5 of the top 10 stands in the entire country. So Chicagoland has really kind of turned Seven Brew on its head. That being said, we are looking at acre plus sites. And then to what, Brendan said, we are looking at, high 30s, low 40s queue counts. This is a photo of our on-site landscape plan. And then also, like I said earlier, we are adding those 3 additional landscaping islands to the impervious parking lot. This is elevations of our signage. And so we worked with staff and Jason specifically very closely to only have south and west facing signage so that it meets the 70.5 square foot criteria in city code. So this is the south facing. And then this is north facing. And then that is west facing. And then these are the material color boards, and specifically on the left in that box is what will cover the HVAC and RTU units to have them shielded. And then we also included the findings of facts for the PUD, the special use, and the map amendment. And now we're done.
I guess I have one question. So you showed the material for screening of the rooftop equipment.
Yep.
And your building pad sits down quite a ways from like the road elevation. I don't know what it exactly is, but it's got to be 10 feet if it's anything. Do you intend to incorporate that height difference in screening of that equipment?
If it needs to be, absolutely, to
Yeah,
be
okay.
100% shielded from any visibility.
Yeah, and with the queuing, if I wouldn't have known better when I saw the amount of queuing at the drive-through, I thought you were very aggressive on your expectations for the store, but I did go by the Naperville one and I see why now. It makes sense. It was ridiculous. But where it's located on site, I mean, it seems to be able to absorb that and hold that. And with your plan, it looks like it's been anticipated. So, okay, questions for the petitioner?
I have one. You mentioned what the queuing and stacking capabilities are for your Naperville location. I missed that. Could you just repeat that?
What our stacking is. So when we first worked with corporate, like I said, Naperville was our first store. Corporate was telling us 15 to 20 cars and half-acre sites.
Okay.
As we've all probably been to Naperville and see it goes down Iroquois, that is why we are now at acre sites looking at stacking high 30, low 40 numbers. And then like Brendan said, 30, did you say 34 or 39?
It was what we found through the 2 Q observations, looking at sales data and zip code data and all that information. We weren't trying to compare it to what a national average would be. For example, some information they provided for a store in Pennsylvania, the peak queue was 11. We didn't feel like that was appropriate based on what this area is doing. So we went with the peak queues at the existing locations and tried to scale them down appropriately to determine a peak Chicagoland queue, where that came into the low 30s. So between 30 and 35, depending on the sales data and what characteristics were applied. That's when Seven Brew went and started making the bigger sites, even exceeding our recommendation of 35, going into the high 30s or 40s, depending on the site location.
Yes. So this stand has queuing for 39. And then if we needed to do the overflow stacking plan, it makes it up to 57.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for petitioner, Mr. Martinez?
So I've never been to Seven Brew. I'd have to check it out. So I don't know exactly how it works. What happens if I'm done, but the person in front of me is not done? Or does that not happen the way?
No, it could happen. You could have somebody in front of you who's ordering 4 or 5 drinks and it's just you yourself. That's part of why when we have our customer and team members with the drive-through doors, we can kind of shuffle around traffic, move somebody up to, let's say like Portillo's has them in a waiting area so that we can keep the flow of cars going.
And is the waiting areas in the map?
I don't know that this stand necessarily has it. So we'll just, if we don't have it at this stand, we'll have to work with our employees to make sure that there's a constant flow and an understanding of how traffic needs to move in order to not cause a delay. Typically like I said, our employees are going around on iPads.
Mhm.
So you could be around the U and your drink is already being put in order. And not typically, it's a 4 to 5 minute wait time. So there is usually not a stagnant of cars waiting to get their drinks.
Okay,
You can notice on the site plan too, staff did request this as part of the review. You see there's a striped crosswalk over there. It was our thought and the petitioner's thought that likely cars could park there. So there would be a clear path for employees to reach those cars if that does occur.
okay, I see.
Okay, any other questions, for petitioner, Mr. Lincoln?
We were talking about Naperville as a comparison. I have been by that spot many times. And so when I saw this in the packet, my immediate thought was traffic. So I'm glad we're talking about it in the queuing. But what I didn't hear, you said that corporate had recommended a number of stacking spaces. What actually can you fit at the Naperville spot? And how does that compare? Is it actually 20? I said, yeah, I remember you say that they recommended 15 to 20, but do you know what the actual number is?
26.
It's 26. Okay.
And
Because that is,
but that's,
yeah.
it's 26 before it extends onto the street.
Okay.
So one of the other operational characteristics here is one of the limitations of the Naperville site is the orders can only be taken so far into the queue. Where the orders can be taken as far back as the 39th vehicle. So there is a operational benefit to these newer sites in the way they're laid out, where Naperville is still fighting some of those initial limitations.
Yeah, Naperville is kind of like a weird C, whereas this is a complete U and allows us to go down the queue line in a more efficient manner.
It seems like every 7 brew I've driven by some in multiple places in the country, and they are always busy. But Naperville seems to be exceptionally always busy. Every time I've gone by it, it is backed up onto the street.
When Naperville first opened, 60% of the sales when we used Placer AI was coming from more than 10 miles away. And I would say 20% of that was actually coming from DeKalb and Northern Illinois.
Any other questions for petitioner?
I may have one.
Go ahead.
Which is the street? I'm blanking on the name of the street. Not Downers, which is the other one? Butterfield. What's the idea? Because where are people gonna be coming in from to the whole area?
They're going to either turn right or left onto Downers and then go through the access point that is nearest to the
But you're enclosed. So which are the entrances to the parking lot in general that people are gonna be using?
There's the signal at Downers Drive, and then there's also the ride in, ride out access drive on Butterfield Road.
That one.
You kind of come past the new Wendy's, and then you go towards the front of the shopping center, and then can make the U-turn into the Far East Drive aisle.
So then I'm coming on Butterfield Road, I'm gonna go in straight down in front of Panera, and then I'm gonna go all the way down and up again. Is that kind of how we're?
That is one route, or
Okay.
if you're coming in from Downers,
Downers.
you turn right in front of Golf Galaxy. The entrance is spaced so that I think it's the 3rd or 4th drive aisle in to the side, so you're pulling them away from that signal before bringing them down. And then that's where you could enter in a typical queue condition.
Okay.
Yeah, you drive through a good part of the parking lot
Yeah.
to get to this location.
Yeah.
They're not pulling in right off of any of the roads.
Okay.
It's accessed off the parking lot.
And then from what I saw, all of that was part of the traffic analysis, right?
Correct. Yeah, we've evaluated all of the access points serving the shopping center as well as the Downers Drive and Butterfield Road intersection.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
So as far as any potential pedestrian traffic, do you guys service pedestrian traffic or is it strictly drive-through?
We will service pedestrian traffic if, let's say, somebody is coming from Golf Galaxy and wants to walk over, we will direct them to the non-service side. That's another reason why there is a crosswalk. We don't advertise it. It's not something we typically would do, but we also will not, turn a customer away. We'll just direct them to the safest side to place the order.
Okay, because I was thinking if you have people who see this long line and they think, well, I can just park and walk up.
And
that could potentially create some difficulties with pedestrian and vehicle traffic in that area because it is enclosed.
Yeah.
Do you have any contingency plans set up for if there is an increase in pedestrian traffic? area?
I can't speak to that completely now. I'm sure my operations team does have that, considering we have so many locations open that we've run across that issue in the future. I can work with Jason and Carter to get a plan put together.
Okay, because I was looking at this, and this long piece that you have that's gray. I'm just wondering if that was on a different map, if that was considered to be like a walk, yeah, right there that leads to the other islands and to the front of Golf Galaxy. Is that considered to be a pedestrian way, or what is that indicating?
I don't
That might just be utility.
I don't
connection.
think so.
Utility?
Yeah.
It's a water line
It's a
connection.
water line, okay.
It does look, I get the question. It does look like that.
Even if there were a sidewalk on the, outside or something like that, just to accommodate any potential eventuality, because I imagine a lot of people that are shopping in that center would want to go over there.
So the sidewalk placement, like Jason talked about, does kind of direct you. They would, if somebody did want to park, they would cross and then go to the right side of the building, the north side. That's the non-service side, where we also have sliding doors on that side.
Okay,
So somebody can, take their order and
so
pick
they
it up.
don't have to necessarily go across the traffic then, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else for the petitioner before we go to the public? Sue?
Yeah, I guess, I noticed it in the packet, the drive-through, we talked a lot about the drive-through and, trying to talk about the impact of that, but there is also the planned, unit development for this. Can you, and you kind of went by it real quick on the slide. What kind of relief are you requesting with that to be able to build this? And do you want to touch on that at all?
Staff will cover that as part of our presentation too, to clarify.
I think the PUD is in regards to, I apologize, I didn't totally. It's in regards to putting the two buildings on one parcel, which would be the Golf Galaxy, and then us being considered the second building. So there is no relief that we're necessarily asking for. We are also just not doing a re-subdivision of the plat.
Carter will cover this during his presentation, but there is for the two buildings placed on one lot, which you can't do with the exception of either asking for a variance or PUD. There is a little bit of parking relief that was noted. And then also location of the dumpsters needed, screening needed rooming too. We'll cover that as part of the staff presentation.
Okay, anything else at this time for the petitioner?
How many employees do you anticipate having on site during our peak hours at this location?
So I will say standard, it's 5. During peak hours, we may have a couple more during the first couple week opening or on swag day, but it's 5. 5 is our typical. We have 2 people taking orders, 2 people making drinks, and 1 person running drinks out to lane 1 and 2.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we're going to go to the public and we'll give you an opportunity to come back and address anything that comes up between the public and the staff report. Okay, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak regarding this application for the PUD and zoning amendment and special use for a drive-through at 1434 Butterfield Road? Good evening, Mr. Richardson.
How are you? Hi, folks. Scott Richards. I live here in Downers Grove. I'm just here to actually just ask questions, but I've never heard of this before. Maybe I'm too old. I have no idea what kind of business. Is this strictly for drinks or is there food served? The thing that I'm hesitant about is this idea of this queuing with up to 39 cars. If I understand it right, you can't go in, there's no way you can go in to eat anything or sit down. You just sit in your car and wait for your order. Pick a pass. But it just sounds like it's going to be really, with all those cars queuing up out there, it just sounds like very congested. And I'm kind of just curious. I'll have to go buy one. I've never been to one. I'll check it out. But I'm trying to figure out what the attraction is. You sit in your car for, I don't know how long to get a drink and then you pull out. Is that it? I don't know. I just question basically the queuing. That's a lot of cars to just be sitting out there in a circle or whatever they do, waiting for an order. It's just very it's a very strange business concept. I've never heard of it before. Anyway, I'll drive by and check it out. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else in the public who'd like to speak at the public hearing? Anybody? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the staff report.
Thank you. Carter Moran, planner for the Village of Downers Grove. Tonight's presentation is 25 ZC 0034. That's for a plan unit development, a map amendment, and a special use to operate and construct a drive-through. So here we see the map. This is a 7.38 acres property located northeast of the intersection of Downers Drive and Butterfield Road. The address does consist of 2 lots of record. The property is zone B3, general services and highway business. All noticing requirements were met and included mailing notices, notice published in the newspaper of record, and posted signs at the locations shown below on Downers Drive and Butterfield Road. Staff received no public comment regarding this proposal. At a high level, the proposed development includes 3 items. The construction of the proposed building, canopy and trash enclosure, the installation of the 39 stacking spaces, along with the 18 overflow stacking spaces extending to the east. In addition, it wasn't noted as much in the petitioner's presentation, but I'll point out the landscape islands that are going in at the end caps of all the existing parking aisles, including those that sort of work around the proposed building. These were requested by staff to improve pedestrian safety and the circulation of traffic throughout the lot without crossing parking aisles. These renderings show the proposed building without signage. Note that the proposed canopy structure extending over the drive-through lane. The building has no customer access for walk-in orders. You just heard a little bit about that, but it's not technically part of the business plan. So therefore, no pedestrian connections from nearby public rights of way were requested by staff. As it regards the specific PUD items, this table shows the relief items requested. These include the construction of the trash enclosure in the street yard between the proposed building and Downers Drive, a reduction of the total number of parking stalls serving the shopping center. This would be 320, which does not meet the requirement of 4 per 1,000 square feet of tenant space for a shopping center, and the building of 2 primary structures on 1 lot of record. I'll keep this really brief. You already heard about the traffic and parking study, but essentially their findings were that the 39 stacking spaces along with the overflow stacking for queuing was more than enough to accommodate the proposed peak business hours for 7 Brew, and that the 320 stalls would be enough to accommodate the existing tenant users as well as any employee parking at 7 Brew. As for the comprehensive plan, the proposal accomplishes the goals of the comprehensive plan by promoting outlot development along Butterfield Road and repurposing parking lots to meet changing retail conditions. The site's location close to major highways makes it an appropriate site for this kind of auto-centric retail development. And then as for sort of the land use itself, the development leverages this Butterfield Road corridor to expand retail uses in an area where there are certainly fewer concerns about increased traffic in residential areas. And it takes advantage of its location along 2 major highways. Based on the petitioner's proposed development with our revisions, staff recommends approval of the proposed PUD special use and map amendment. The following 2 slides, as well as this one, include the review criteria for the 3 entitlement items requested by the petitioner. Should the commission vote to approve the proposed entitlements, a draft motion can be found on page 20 of your agenda packet. Thank you.
Okay, questions for staff? Mr. Lincoln?
I guess I'll start again. So regarding the PUD, let's say, for example, any other kind of outlot was going to go on a business just like this, a big box store, you have an outlot. In general, we would be at this PUD process. It's like if we wanted to build any kind of fast food restaurant or something else, because there's 2 buildings, it always requires a PUD. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's actually more typical that you have a subdivided outlot. That's what this group has seen the last couple of requests, but I can't think of the last time, with the exception of Wendy's, because that was an outlot that was developed to exceed variance. For the parking, typically we do see large majority of our shopping centers are PUDs to begin with, because there's some type of relief, to get a better type of commercial development too. So PUD would be typical. It's not as typical as having two standalone buildings. This is the process for that.
Yeah, I guess that was more what my question was pertaining to, is like the process, because they want to put that second building on one lot. That's what's triggered. That's one of the big triggers for the PUD. Like they wouldn't be able to, or you'd have to break the lot into two. There's no other way to build that outlot. And then also kind of in that same vein, it looked like they're talking about the trash. So there's really nowhere else. I mean, the way I'm understanding it, I mean, that trash, you couldn't really put it anywhere else, right? Because it's surrounded, you got roads on two sides, you've got the parking lot on the other. There's really nowhere else to put it. So it's like they kind of have to have the PUD because the trash is not hidden behind the building, but there's physically no behind the building to hide it, if I'm understanding that correctly.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you do have the street sides of the lot are on the side with Downers Drive and Butterfield Road. So there's two sides wherein if you put the trash enclosure, you're asking for relief. And since they've decided to locate on the west and have the drive aisles encroach much closer to the building on the north and the east sides, that ended up being a reason to request relief.
So conceivably, I guess they wouldn't have to have relief if it went on the north or the east side?
I suppose, but
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's not a lot of space and yeah. But I just guess I'm trying to understand that technicality of why we have to have the PUD for the relief for that particular thing.
It's just one of those items that, you know, they're nominally prohibited in street yards. And so anytime you're requesting it to go in there, you can include it as part of your overall PUD request.
Okay, those are my questions.
Okay, any other questions for staff? I guess just to confirm, under, existing nonconformities, the two parking items, that is just because that's where the existing pavement is today. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So there's no change as a result of this application. You're just noting that those two pavement lines that are existing are existing nonconformities as it's noted.
You mean the parking setback lines in your table?
Yeah, the Butterfield Road setback on the south, the requirement's 25 feet. It's actually 23.75 feet. And then the Downers Drive setback on the west, they're 25 foot required. And what's proposed is 10. And they're not really proposing that. Those are really existing conditions.
They're existing conditions on the lot right now, and they're not extending or, increasing that nonconformity on those parking setbacks either.
Right, okay. And I'm assuming staff had no issues with the location of the dumpster, because typically you wouldn't want a dumpster facing the street, but in this instance, because of the lay of the land in the immediate area, it seems to make sense. Plus the fact that this property sits down about 10 feet from the street elevation, it's really not even visible. It's kind of screened by the elevation change.
Yeah, integrated the design of the rail to match the buildings. And also we did discuss with the north to meet the code readings to the east. With the placement of the drive-through and the drive aisles that surround the site, they would need that. So that just wasn't here to be the best site plan design.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that I think there's a better place for it. I think it works well where it's at. I'm just kind of clarifying that was the reason staff doesn't have issue with it technically facing a street. I view Downers Drive in that area. I almost view it as part of the parking lot. It's really hard to conceive it as a street, it's like a drive aisle. But, okay. Any other, and then as far as the shopping center parking spaces, the reduction there, I mean, would staff agree that generally those parking lots are overparked to begin with? And that asphalt is vacant a high majority of the time?
Plan project from last year, we are going to be embarking on zoning text amendments, and one of which is to relook at the parking requirements that we have, definitely commercial and shopping centers. So we have seen cases that have been in front of you, and before a trend of parking relief, we had no issues on those sites that have received parking relief too. So we will be looking at it this year too.
Okay, any other questions for staff this time? No? Okay, go back to the petitioner. So this is just an opportunity. You're not obligated to, but if you have any kind of last comments you'd like to make, any kind of a summary statement, now would be the time. Okay. So we'll move kind of from the public input or public testimony portion of the meeting into kind of discussion and deliberation up here. So discussion, comments?
I'm pretty supportive of this. I think the design has been very thoughtfully put together with a lot of intention, with queuing, stacking, with some of the challenges at other locations such as Naperville. You know, at first when I looked at this last night, I got really nervous that we were trying to do ingress and egress off of, you know, a busier street, and I feel really comfortable that it's enclosed within this parking lot or this site. And therefore, I think the standards have been met.
Any other comments, discussion? Ms. Frankvik?
Yeah, I would say that having seen the Naperville location at its peak, you know, definitely was a little concerned about how this was going to fit into the village. But I think out of all the places that they could have chosen within the village, I think this is probably the best possible location for this business. And I've seen the potential that it can create, you know, as far as traffic. And so I think the plan is very well thought out. Like I said, my concerns about the pedestrian, you know, it's just something, you know, in that situation that, you know, may occur, but most likely it's typically a drive-through business. So I feel like all of the standards for approval have been met for this, and I think it's been very well planned out. So thank you for that.
Any other comments? Mr. Lincoln?
Yeah, very similar comments to Commissioner Frankovic. I saw it in the packet, immediately was like, there's going to be traffic concerns. I've been by the Naperville one enough to know that as much as I would love new businesses, that definitely has an impact on its neighborhood. Sometimes even just trying to shop near there is difficult. But that said, when I saw the location, I'm like, this is exactly the kind of location that will work for this kind of business. The queuing is not going into a street off of Ogden. It's not going into a, you know, some kind of a neighborhood where they have to figure out how do you route the traffic through the neighborhood and have people flagging or doing traffic control. I mean, in a parking lot, in a commercial parking lot, makes sense. I'm not super concerned about a lot of the relief from the PUD. I mean, the trash enclosure, I think they're going to find a way to make it where we don't see it. If you moved it to the north or east, you have to completely redo the parking lot because there's no space for it. So that's pretty simple. You know, the number of spaces that they're going to include, just, you know, I think it's good to hear that this is that much more than Naperville, so they'll be able to handle it better. They've learned some lessons, and we're pretty honest about that. I think that's important too. Happy to see the decrease in impervious area. And also glad to hear that there are some deliberative steps on behalf of the village to change our parking regulations, because that was going to be one of my comments of, we get relief request after relief request of, well, we don't need as much parking, let's take away parking. We are oversaturated with parking in all of these business districts, and this is a great reuse of area that's just causing more runoff for no reason, because there's no cars there. Every time I drive by there, half that lot, at least half that lot, is completely empty, and it will serve the village better to have a business there. So with all that, I think it's a really good compromise on stuff. And as far as our purview on, you know, the drive-through as part of the special use, it's all just, are they mitigating the impacts to the neighborhood? And like I said, couldn't be a better spot for something like this. And they have talked about many different ways they're going to reduce its impact. So I'm very much in approval, or very much in favor of approval.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And I think we have the benefit of the net increase in the impervious space. But the location of it seems to be ideal for your visibility. It's going to drag more traffic by the fronts of the other businesses in the area. It's got great visibility because it kind of sits down in a hole a little bit off the intersection. I think the layout works good. If the queue line backs up beyond what is shown, it backs up into kind of a dead part of the parking lot. It's not backing up into a street or a drive aisle that's going to be causing any issues. So I think it's ideal, ideal for all those reasons. The dumpster location, I I kind of like it where it's at. It's nice and quick for the employees to get to. And if it gets moved, we're likely to lose another parking spot or two, which wouldn't break my heart, but I think it's nice to have everything contiguous there and not kind of scattered, just, for aesthetic purposes. So yeah, I'm in support of it too. As far as the special use permit for the drive-through window, usually we have concerns about, a lot of these are adjacent to residential properties. I don't know that any of the concerns we typically have for drive-through windows apply to this site. It's kind of isolated. It's down in a hole. Noise from order boards and things are not a concern there. Headlights shining into something are not a concern there. Overall, I think it's well done and would support it as well. Any other comments?
I echo many of the comments here and appreciate the petitioner's collaboration with the village.
Okay. If there's nothing else, there is a recommended motion if you so choose. But at this time, we'll look for a motion on this one.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that based upon the petitioner's submittal, the staff report, and testimony presented, I find that the petitioner has met the standards of approval of a planned unit development, a map amendment from B3 General Services and Highway Business to B3 PUD, General Services and Highway Business Planned Unit Development, and a special use to construct and operate a drive-through restaurant as required by the Village of Downers Grove zoning ordinance, and is in the public interest, and therefore move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to Village Council approval of 25-PZC-0034, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report numbered 1 and 2.
Okay, motion to approve by Mr. Lincoln, and seconded by Ms. Frankovic. Roll call.
All right, Lincoln.
Aye.
Frankovic.
Aye.
Patel.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Chairman Ricker.
Aye.
Guys have it.
Okay, you're recommended for approval. Thank you. Good luck. There'll be staff will get to you regarding your next meeting date with Village
So
Council.
we locked that in the room, but the same message. So we'll let you know.
Any staff announcements?
First, staff would like to welcome Commissioners Wolf and Martinez. Thank you for attending this evening and dedicating your time for these Monday evenings. We appreciate it. We will have at least one public hearing scheduled for the February 2nd meeting. So if you have any issues with attendance, please let me know as soon as possible. And then we actually will sneak preview that comprehensive zoning text amendment projects at the next meeting, assuming we have enough time. So
Well, I'll go to that.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Motion by
adjourn.
Mr. Lincoln, second by Ms. Frankovic. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.